Thanks. They're ripping.
He said they do make that.
You're the boss. I know.
10:01.
Roll call. Okay.
One.
Rick Aldinger,
Here.
Justin Chang,
Here.
Carol Trabajian,
Here.
Nick Sina,
Here.
Rick Hoyer,
Here.
Thank you. Okay, we'll convene the quarterly measure P&S Oversight Committee, and we start with some announcements.
in-person rules. The city of Monterey is committed to the safe attendance of its public meetings. Masks are recommended and encouraged. We ask that attendees in the council chambers keep their phones and devices muted to prevent audio interference and feedback with a hybrid meeting. Zoom procedures. The city of Monterey seeks to continue to offer virtual methods for public participation in meetings. If you aren't joining us in person here in the council chamber, there are 2 ways to virtually participate in this meeting. You may join the meeting directly on Zoom Gov using the Zoom app on your computer or mobile device, and you can also call into the Zoom meeting. To join the meeting on Zoom on your computer, smartphone, or telephone, use the link or phone number on the agenda at iSearchMonterey.org. To call into the Zoom meeting, dial toll-free 833-568-8864, then enter meeting ID 16002-16033, and if prompted to enter participant ID, press pound. Detailed instructions on using Zoom are available at monterey.org/public meetings. To make a public comment using the Zoom app, you can virtually raise your hand by pressing the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. If you dialed in by phone, raise your hand by dialing *9 and then unmute yourself when called upon by dialing *6. You must do both. Public commenters will be muted until it is their turn to speak. I will call on each public speaker in the order of their hands raised. Please stay within the time limit that will be established for today's meeting, which we will show using a countdown timer on the screen. If you are connected live on Zoom, the timer is accurate with no delay. Today's meeting is also streamed live on the city's YouTube account, which is accessible at youtube.com/City of Monterey with an approximate 10-second delay, and on Comcast channel 25 with up to a 90-second delay. As always, we look forward to receiving public comments.
So we will call the meeting to order. We have, and under public comments, allowing the public to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on any subject within the jurisdiction of the Measure P&S Oversight Committee, but which is not on the agenda. Do we have any public comments?
No public comments.
Okay, thank you. Then we will start if we can. Do we have any board member comments at the time? Nothing? No. Start with approval of the minutes from the May 7th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Aldinger, second by Chang. Do we have any discussion? No discussion. Could we have a roll call vote, please? Then
Rick Aldinger,
Yes.
Justin Chang,
Abstain.
Carol Trabajian,
yes.
Nick Sina,
Yes.
Rick Hoyer,
Abstain.
Next, then, if we could, we would move on to reviewing the unaudited expenditures from April 1, 2023 through June 15, 2023 for conformance with Measure P and S language.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. So the Measure P activity for from fiscal year 2023 through June 15, 2023. I'm going to start on the second page, which is the Measure P storm drains. The total amount spent for the storm drains, $336,243 on materials plus an additional $26,000 on labor. So a total for storm drains, $362,709.53. Moving on to the sidewalks, we spent $254,301. And for labor, an additional $284,853. So for a total for the sidewalk projects, $539,154.38. Moving on to pavements. Pavements, the amount spent $2,017,328 with an additional $196,548 for labor. Total of $2,213,877. For the ADA projects, it's $509,838, and then for labor, $52,558.43 for a total of $562,396 for the ADA projects. Going back to the first page, I want to point out the year-over-year comparison for for fiscal year 21-22. The total amount of revenue that we have year to date, $11,541,689. The amount that's been received through June 15, 2023 for fiscal year 23, an additional $8,881,000. The total amount that's been spent through 6/15/2022 was $6.9 million. And then as of 6/15/2023, the total amount that was spent was $3.6 million. The other details we'll go over in the next report.
Yeah, just one thing, you might want to fix the heading of the one where it says fiscal year 21-23. I'm assuming that's actually 22-23.
Yes, sir. Got it. Thank you for catching it.
You're welcome.
That concludes this report.
Madam Chair, can we ask questions about the?
We have any, yes?
Yeah.
Any questions? Yes, please.
Yeah, when do we put curb ramps in ADA versus pavement? Well, yeah, it's just I'm seeing them in, I always thought curb ramps were ADA related and they're in ADA, but they're also in streets and paving.
Yes, sometimes I guess it would just depend. So Tom Hardy, acting city engineer. Sometimes they could be in a project. Where was that actually?
Okay,
located?
let's see. We've got
It should be broken out.
You got Measure S curb ramps, then you've got Measure S curb ramps again, Whitson engineers, all under pavement. And again, you got multiple of those with Whitson engineers under pavement. But then we've got Whitson engineers ramps and ADA too.
So I'll check that. It could be just the portion of the when we use them where a lot of times the projects include curb ramps and the pavement. So we'll look into what the work,
Yeah, just
actual work is.
kind of because to me, that's ADA work, but I'm sure there's
Yes.
logic to it, but
Yep,
And is
we'll
it
see if
different
it's
work?
broken out.
yeah.
Or is it repeated? That's the question
Yeah.
too.
I have a question.
That's it.
Yes, please.
That's all good.
Just a couple questions on the first report. A couple items that I just want to confirm are authorized expenditures under Measure P and S. On the first page here, in the middle of the page note, Portola Plaza added to pavement. What is that? What work was done at Portola Plaza?
There was in front of Portola Plaza that's in the right of way. There's the circular area that is actually paving bricks, and there was an uplift through like a lot of the bricks. So we've been working on a project to correct that.
Okay, and that's considered a city street then?
Yes, it's in the right of way.
Same, okay, thank you. Same question on the marina parking lot expenditures, whether that the parking lot is an authorized expenditure under PNS. I don't remember.
That would seem more to me like the parking fund rather than the
Actually,
It's-
marina fund. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
sorry.
in,
Either one.
I lost my head. Yeah, right.
there are a number of sources of funding for that project. The pavement is one, there's storm drain, you'll notice in here as well. There's marina funding, it's coming from all over. The parking is contributing. So there are many sources for that project.
Sure, but my question is whether the PNS money should be one of those funders according to the language of the ordinance.
Because it's a maintenance project, we were considering it that way, yes.
But it's not a street.
And
Correct.
there are separate funds.
No, I think this is picking up on Rick is the wording of PNS, which is streets, sidewalks, ADA and storm drains. So if the funds being used for the parking lot from PNS are for storm drains, that would work. But if it's for repaving the parking lot and regrading it, that's not a street.
I even question the
I-
storm drains
question
in a
that.
parking lot.
But I mean,
So that, yeah, that's
Wouldn't necessarily disagree with you.
And there is,
Like why is there ADA in the parking lot too?
well, and there are funds in both the marina and parking that would be, I think, more appropriate to that than PNS.
And for me, I was gonna say, it doesn't matter where you find the money, but it clearly does. But again, the main point being, it doesn't seem consistent with
the language.
the measure language.
Well, let me check on where those were. There are 5 or 6 different sources of funding for this, and they're all specific to where portions of the lot, like we redid the ramps, the boat ramps. So that came from the marina fund. I'm gonna check on all this, but
Yeah.
let me see where these specific charges came from and we'll confirm that.
Parking lot by
Yes.
its definition is not a street.
Yep. Figueroa Street is, though.
Yeah, I just need to know what it's, in which
Washington,
case we may
right.
need to change the verbiage of what it is that's being done. Right now,
Yes.
it's saying
Yep. no,
we're in a
you're
parking
correct.
lot.
And or reallocate the funding, because then the funding is actually for the streets, storm drains and sidewalks.
That's Mr. O'Leary.
Well, even a stopped clock, right?
Yep.
Didn't even think of it.
Yeah, so, thanks for looking into that.
Yes.
a street that runs through the parking.
Well, Figueroa Street on the east end goes to the wharf and
Wharf too.
Through it to
no,
No.
that's not a public street.
No.
Washington Street on the other end, we'd have to check where the right of way ends. But there is both Figueroa and Washington go into with the parking area.
Does Washington Street go in like where urgent care used to be? Is that still Washington Street where it goes into the lot?
That's what I need to check, like where the actual right of way ends. Yes.
Yeah, if we can check on that,
Mhm.
because yes, there are those,
Mhm.
but that Figueroa is outside of the parking lot Washington actually does go into the parking. I mean,
What's the entrance?
It may.
it,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Rick, are those concerns sufficient to not approve, in your opinion? Or approve with a caveat?
Yeah, I would, I'd be okay approving as long as, you're able to get back to us at our next meeting and with clarification on that and whether those funds need to be reallocated. But yeah, I think with that caveat, I'd be okay.
Do you have any other discussion? And you're checking on the curb ramps too, and the two. Because
Yeah, I mean, either way, they're a valid project.
Well, the
Just-
project.
It's just where
that-
it's classified.
that-
That's different.
That money is
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
I'll move that we find the list of projects consistent with the language of Measure P&S, with withholding that for the marina parking lot until we have further information.
Second.
We have a motion by Hoyer and a second by Chang. Do we have any discussion? Any other discussion? Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Thank you. Then could we have a roll call vote, please?
Rick Aldinger,
Yes.
Justin Chang,
Yes.
Carol Tribajian,
Yes.
Nick Sina,
Yes.
Rick Hoyer.
Yes.
Now we'll move on to the reviewing the unaudited periodic report for period of April 1, 2023 through June 15, 2023.
Sorry about that. Okay, so start with from inception from through June 15th of Measure PNS. We have total revenues received of 78.9 million. Total expenditures to date, 63.7 million, and the fund balance was is 15.2 million. It's a 615. So for the period this period is actually from July 1, 2022 through June 15th, 2023. We have total revenues, 8,881,296. We have total expenditures of 3,678,138. And then we have a total revenues over expenses of 5.2 million. It's an increase in fund balance. So during the FY 22-23, the projects will continue to spend. We've already talked about the year-over-year comparison. Those are the numbers as June 15, 2023.
Madam Chair. I've got a question. I guess I'm trying to figure, is the 11.5 million last year unusually high, or did we really have that steep a drop in sales tax collection this fiscal year?
No, we're not done with the fiscal year. This
We're
is just the
behind a
June
quarter.
15th. So remember, we're like 2 months behind.
Yeah, but I'm looking here on the one on the back. It was 11.5 million year to date last year compared to 8.8 million year to date this year. So I guess, are we down that much in sales tax, or was the 11 million last year an anomaly?
Or was that actually the total?
I'm just,
Yeah.
That's the total.
okay.
But
So that was not, then it was not through 6/15/22. That was like the actual for 21-22 fiscal.
Exactly. Okay, exactly. We've been trying to get the reports to go through on a quarterly basis, but by the time when our meetings here are set, sometimes it's not, the last payroll period is not included. So when we prepared this report, they didn't adjust that. So that 11 million is the audited numbers. So it's for the entire fiscal year for 2022.
So I guess my question then becomes, are we going to collect $2.5 million in 15 days?
Well,
Because end of fiscal year, June 30th. I'm just trying to get a feel. Are we really down a lot this
It-
year?
no, 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 no.
It's still behind. Their
Right.
numbers, it says through June 15th, but the numbers aren't accurate because they're actually a
That's
couple of
the
months
amount
behind.
collected that we've actually received. So basically, so when you have your sales tax, so for January, the city won't receive that money until March. So June, we won't receive that money until August. So we won't have the final numbers until our next time.
So realistically, we could hit
Yes,
11.5.
absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I just was, all of a sudden, I was getting a little worried that we were
Understand.
down a couple
Yeah.
$1 million.
The answer to your question is yes.
But we'll catch up.
Okay.
Director King, are there restrictions on how the, I guess, held funds that haven't been spent are allocated? Are they just in a general account or can they go to treasuries?
The Measure P and S, they have their own fund. So whenever we get the revenues that we receive, it goes strictly into the revenue P and S. And then when expenditures are allocated, projects come up, we actually, those are the appropriations against that. But it's all still kept into the Measure P and S until we have like project numbers and then they're allocated to projects. So whatever you see, it's reporting wise is separate from the general fund, is separate from other funds.
Gotcha. What I've seen is there's an substantial increase in interest income. So I guess I'm wondering, how are those funds allocated within those specified accounts for PNS? Is it like a money market, just a regular cash account?
All the cash citywide is pooled.
Okay,
So when we
I
do, yeah, so when we get we do the allocations by fund based on what the cash balance is from the funds.
Okay.
There's a
Okay.
whole list of different things that's invested in through the county, right? If I remember. right?
We have, not county, state, so we have LAIF, and then we also have a separate investment funds that our investment company is Chandler. So we have the bulk of our money invested through there, through money markets and other accounts that we can do.
Thank you.
I have a question. So I'm a little confused then on this back chart.
That's what confused me. too.
Again, yeah, man.
The top row, so above the date, it says through June 15th.
Right.
And the top row, all the revenue matches the revenue on this and on the same, it's all the same. But the expenditures all vary, where the expenditures get higher for the full year as opposed to through June 15th. So I can understand logistically, like more money was spent. But at no point after June 15th did the revenue increase. Or are the revenues through the whole month, but the expenditures are up until 15th?
The expenditures are up through June 15th was what's actually been paid out. So let's just say
I'm talking about for previous years.
for previous years,
So for 21, 22, the unhighlighted column 1 over. So that has total expenditures of 6.9 million. And last year's total expenditures were 7.2 million, right? So that would lead me to assume that those are the expenditures through June 15th of that relative year.
correct.
But the revenues are 11.5 and here they're 11.5. And the same logic applies to each of those. So that's why I was asking, are the revenues through the end of June? Or are the revenues stop at June 15th, but no money comes in between June 16th and June 30th each year?
Revenues will come in and we'll also receive revenues in July and also in August, and we will accrue them back. So by the time you get your final report for the fiscal year in our next meeting, I think it's in September, October, it'll be all the numbers for the entire year through June 30. And so all of these numbers will be adjusted for whatever expenses, and the same thing with the expenses.
This report, all of these revenues were adjusted.
It looks like
but the
except
expenses were
for
not.
the 11 million. The 11 million is for the total year. It should have been adjusted to 615, but it was not.
Got it. For each of the years.
Just for the
So
20.
like
What's the same on
2021 is the
2021?
same revenue and 1920 is the same revenue as is on this.
It's the same chart. It's
Yeah.
just cut and paste into one report. It's the same chart.
So I guess to answer the question is, the revenue is through 630, the expenses are through 615 on the back.
615.
Why I was asking my question at the beginning of that.
Understand.
I didn't compare them from the front to the back.
Back, yeah. we have any other questions? Sir? Then. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve this report as presented.
So moved.
Second,
And let's see. Rick Aldinger,
Yes.
Justin Chang,
Yes.
Carol Tribajian,
yes,
Nick Sina.
Yes.
Rick Hoyer.
Yes,
thank you. Perfect. Now we'll move on to review the street rehabilitation and reconstruction reports. I had a question. In this report, interestingly, there are, the first three are Jesse Street, Carmelito, and Fawn Lane on 5/30/2013. Do we? That was before Measure P.
Correct. That was the last maintenance date. So one of the things, maybe I should just launch. I was waiting for questions, but that's a good one. We have, since the last month, if you recall, we had, executed a contract with a contractor who went out into the field this last quarter and did like maintenance on these. A lot of the information we believe on these, there were errors that we have noticed throughout the years, and that's been pointed out over the last year in this committee. So we had hired a firm to go out and do the field work and update the database. So this looks like 4 more questions that we're going to do. We received the report, just a draft report, a presentation last week on Friday morning. By the next meeting, we'll have the full report in there. And I think it was actually a really useful discussion. It was good to have them go out and be able to correct some of the errors that we had noticed. It actually raised the overall city PCI by a point up to 70, just to correct the errors. So we're going to continue using them to go through the rest of the report, and I can provide as much detail on that as you want. But this looks like one of the errors that we will look at in the next round with them.
Yeah, because that shouldn't be included pre-Measure P.
Correct. Correct.
question for you. I thought at first Cass Street's not on this report. But what got me thinking about it was I had the pleasure of living on the number 5 from the top of the worst street or tied for the 4th. But then when I drive up Cass Street, it's a heck of a lot worse than my street, but it's not on here.
No, that one is scheduled. So
At
these,
first it was because it was commercial, but then I found commercial ones on it. So it was like,
yeah, no. And I had a question too for the committee. Like, how would you like to see the data? These are the streets that we have worked on
oh,
Right.
since, and except for the top 3, apparently. Well, there may be more as we go through it too. So we haven't worked on Cass Street. It's scheduled to be in an upcoming project, which I think is scheduled for sometime next year or the following year. So the question I had too for the committee was, how would you like to see the information? Last time we had it presented as the streets that had been completed, which is what you're looking at here.
And when they were.
Yes, and when they were. And then there was another separate list of the streets that had yet to be completed that I didn't include. It hasn't changed since the last meeting. But how would you like it? I can put like everything in here. It would be another 50 pages to the agenda.
no,
I
I
don't
just
know makes any.
Just maybe,
practical
well,
use.
to be reminded, it maybe here are the streets that still haven't been here's the list of streets yet to be worked on.
Correct.
Because, and again, yeah, they
Mhm.
may end up in there, then it's like, okay, yeah, now you've worked on it, but we may not remember that the list of what is yet to be completed.
And so would you like that in the future at the next meeting? How would you like it presented? Like we could do, that's my real question. Because this has come up for the past
I
several
think
meetings.
just a separate report with those
Yeah.
rather than
With the
mixing
two.
them
The
in.
list, yes,
This
I
probably
agree.
be the easiest for you too. Yeah.
Either way, it doesn't matter. It takes a few
To me, a
minutes.
separate one, I just, silly me, when I read the title, I just didn't think of it as being only the ones. Yeah, I kind of was looking for, when I look, okay, what are the worst streets in the city? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had assumed that this was all the streets. 'cause
Yeah,
I was
it's not.
actually wondering like where's, like Henry Row only has like one section. So I was like, oh, curious what. But then now I'm hearing, so the other section hasn't been worked. Really what it would be.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I think it's a separate, that way you can
Yeah.
just see the ones that have even.
That's a
touched by
shorter
Measure
list where
P.
we don't have to find Waldo in
yeah.
there in the,
It's shorter, but it's still 7 pages. So this is 15
That's fine.
that's good.
and that's 7. Okay. And then would you like them sorted alphabetically? This way we did it by PCI, so you can see what the worst streets are right off the top.
Can I just clarify, what is that 7 pages? What is that? That's stuff in queue? Why don't we, I mean, that is streets that are in queue to be worked on, or that's all the other streets?
Yes, it's in the queue to be worked on.
And are there more streets that are not in the queue to be worked on and have not been worked on?
No, they're either been worked on since 2015 or they're in the queue to be worked on. We haven't gotten to them yet.
And that would be 100% of Monterey streets. would be
Yes,
Or here.
yes.
And there'd
And
probably be some overlap, right? Because I'm assuming there's some streets we've worked on that get worked on again. Is that right or no? Would they be on both lists then?
no, they would be on the streets. If we'd done it under Measure P or Measure S, they would be on the completed streets list.
Got it.
Yeah.
But that would be one thing over in our neighborhood where we had, I know my street, probably yours was slurry sealed early, 15-ish.
Yes,
And it is time now then to be, probably to be done again.
yes.
So do you have reports on when you're planning on some of this that needs to be re-slurry sealed?
Yes, we've been looking at that. We don't have a report yet, but working with our consultant on this project report. So that's one of the questions that keeps coming up and what we'd like to do. There's a lot of information in this report and I will send it to you before the next meeting as soon as we get it, which I think will be this week. I'll send it to each of you so you can look at it and understand. It explains a lot. There's a lot of like information on how the street saver works, on how the pavement deteriorates over time. So we're only looking at pavement with this,
Right.
but it actually clears up a lot of the questions I've heard over the last year.
Because then they
What is-
will have to be scheduled, and that's good that they went segment by segment, looking at all of them. And it's nice that the PCI is up, but in some of the neighborhoods where it was done early, it's got to be, I mean, it's coming up because of the neighborhoods that are getting done or the streets that are getting done, but down in potentially in some of them that were done early.
That's correct. And the way I understand it was explained to me, well, how I could have too many things. The pavement index, like it starts out at 100 when you build a brand new street. You guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then it starts deteriorating over time. And then at some point, then it starts to really rapidly deteriorate. And then it kind of slows out at the bottom. So it's kind of like an S curve. So we want to catch as many streets as we can before it starts dropping steeply so that it costs less to do it when it's up top. But
Well,
we have to
I think it
balance
was
all that.
explained to us in the beginning that you're doing a rehab rather than replace, because at a certain PCI, it's going to get down to a place where you have to replace it rather than just rehab.
Yes, yes. And the work, so you should have this by next week at this time is my expectation. certainly by the end of the month. It explains all that in the back, and they have recommendations for each of the streets on how to fix them. Some of them that are in good condition, it's kind of like weight. They still have a 20 to 30-year life. As they're getting, the worst streets need more work, and it's going to be more expensive to do it.
And a lot of
That's
what
what
we
I
have
thought.
left is the worst streets.
Yes, and the
Because we did the low hanging
completed
fruit first.
streets. Yes.
It's that.
And we have just, so you know, too, we have RSR 4, which is the road resurfacing. So that's a slurry seal project for Fremont Street, Moonrush Lighthouse. And we've added in some Alta Mesa and Don Davi, Alta Mesa Circle,
Thank you.
because they were there. That's out to bid right now. We'll be opening those next week on Tuesday. The one after that, another resurfacing project. So it's slurry seal with like dig outs for the worst sections of the pavement. We'll take those and repair them and then slurry the whole road. Is mostly New Monterey and a little bit of downtown. Also, that should be out for bids this week. So within a month, we'll know what's happening on that project.
When you say Fremont, you're talking Fremont downtown, not North Fremont?
Fremont is between Abrego and Aguajito.
Okay.
That's
I finally know where the Monterey city limits is on North Fremont, because Seaside paved right up to. There's a little chunk of
Yes.
pavement that it's like,
yeah,
oh,
and that's
I
still-
guess this is where we end.
Yes, yeah. And so I guess maybe the last thing too on this report is we were looking at the actual worst streets, the ones we knew we had problems with. So they looked at, I think it was like 9 miles of streets. So it's not the entire city. It's about 9%. We have 103 miles of street. So from what they looked at, it was really thorough and it was actually really helpful. So I'm anxious actually to get this to you so you can read it and understand a little bit better how the conditions go. And they've done that for the streets that they looked at and just itemized what the treatment would be for that. In addition to that, too, I just wanted to mention that the same consultant, Kimley Horn, they have a national pavement expert who is in town for some work. So we were able to get him over here and we had like a full day with him, which was really useful too. So he explained a lot of this to us at the time. This was most of the public works, the engineering division. We're able to go and we went around and looked at different places in town, and he's really good about saying, oh, you look at something and tell you what's happening there. So it was a really useful day that we had. That was back in June last month too. So we're actually going to be using the consultant more and more because it's working really well. at
Where
this
does
point.
that
So
cost of the consultant come into? Is that in?
that's
measure-
in here.
But is it in measure, where is it allocated to? Measure P? Or is it in the where from the general fund?
It would be in S because it's we're
That's what I
looking
mean.
at the
Yeah,
streets.
S, right,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, we'd be looking at the streets and the pavement.
I call it P no matter what. It's a,
Right, right, yes.
Yeah.
That's
okay, so have we seen, I don't know that,
We saw bills to Kimberly Horn, whether
Yeah.
it was for that or not. I don't
right,
know.
and we'll check that. But my guess is that they're still working on the report, so we haven't seen the final bill for sure. But
Yeah.
I tell you how much of it. I think that our estimate was for in the upper 20,000s.
upper 20,000?
Yeah, it's like $25,000 to $30,000, something in that range.
That sounds reasonable,
Pretty
actually.
cheap for reviewing every.
I was just
street.
gonna
It's
say-
and
I
it,
said reasonable, I'm being nice, you're right.
for us
Incredibly
to have the
reasonable.
time to do it, unfortunately, as you know, like every time I'm here, I'm like, well, we still didn't get to it. But finally, we still didn't get to it, but we were able to get a consultant who can do it very quickly and do it well. So
No, if that's what that is costing, that's well worth it, I would say.
I
That's a
agree.
waste of staff time if they A, do that so well and B, do it so inexpensively.
And the
So,
reality is if the staff was doing it, we'd be seeing it in P and.
Yeah, right.
So
and for a lot more money,
with all the
probably.
benefits and all the rest added in.
So
Good.
At some point in this, Tom, you asked how we would want to see the list sorted for the projects still in the queue.
Yes.
To me, it seems like if they're sorted by scheduled date of maintenance, that seems like it would make sense to me.
Okay.
Along with, the proposed treatment and current PCI and so forth, but that seems most useful to me.
All right.
Or you just give it to us on the spreadsheet form and we can sort it to our heart's content.
Yeah,
Right.
that would work as well. That'd be the easiest for me.
Because then if we haven't
And honestly-
searched for a street. we
Honestly,
can- I mean,
that would work. I mean, for me,
I'm
because
fine with
then
that.
it's like, no, that's not the
Sure.
way I wanted to see it. Well, then resort it yourself, you know?
Yeah, and that's exactly how we do it. We
Yes,
just
yeah,
Yeah.
sort.
Well, and when we could
Because-
search for the street. So it's like, I had a fun time going through all these looking for Cass Street,
Yeah,
which wasn't there.
that is coming up though. Yes.
I just, like I said, I assumed it was everything. And it's like, we're not worse than Cass Street,
No, but
which is pretty bad.
yeah. If you could, that would be great if we could, then it's like, if you want to see it this way, you sort it yourself, and I mean that nicely. That's
Yeah.
great. That really works for us.
It's fine with me.
Yeah.
It also helps if we have a question, somebody asks a question about something, we can find their street a lot quicker
Right,
than.
yeah.
Than,
The one thing I know it doesn't have right now is the upcoming project date. So that's something that we'd have to add in for the streets that
it's
we're looking
upcoming. I mean, because that's going to continually be changing as you get
Right.
contracts done.
at. Right.
Okay, good.
But-
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So do we have any other questions? Any other discussion? Any public comment about Cass Street? No, kidding.
No public comment.
Thank you. May we then have a motion to accept this report as presented?
So move.
Second,
Perfect. Any further discussion?
I didn't want to make. the motion.
No public comment?
No
I
public.
think we have a
comment.
roll call vote, please.
Yes. Rick Aldinger.
yes.
Justin Chang.
Yes.
Carol Tribajian.
Yes,
Nick Sina.
Yes.
Rick Hoyer.
Aye.
perfect. Excellent. So then we move on to the sales tax update for Q4.
Okay. So this is our Q4 sales tax. Sorry, I didn't know if you can hear me. This is our sales tax updates from our consultants, our HDL. They do our sales tax. So they run this report for us, or they create this report for us every quarter. So just to give you where the fourth quarter, October through December 2022, our measure PNS total for that period was up 5%. So it came in at 2.9 million and some change. We have a report, excluding any changes, there was up, the sales tax were up 2.8% from October through December from the prior year. The major highlights of this report, as you know, well, that's it for Measure PNS. Did you guys have any specific questions on this report? It's just really for informational.
Yeah, I've got a question for the county and state pools. That's like if I buy a car in Seaside and Monterey gets a percentage of that because I reside here. Isn't that is that what the pool is, that type of revenue?
The pool will be something like Amazon and
Okay.
those online shopping, those kind of things, and that the county kind of pulls those and that comes back. I think we have a separate tax for the car sales. So if you buy it in LA, because your address is here, it'll come back here.
I was just wondering why, of all the other ones for us, it was up, but that pool was down fairly significantly. I was just trying to get I mean, if it related to the,
If I remember correctly, and we did this report, went over this report several months ago, I believe there were some adjustments and some changes that were made. And then I think if I remember correctly, the Amazon, for one, there was a fulfillment center and then it's split into two separate kind of things. So there's been some other
okay,
items that kind of go into this and it has it up and down. So once you kind of do the adjustments and kind of net out any changes from prior quarter.
Okay. It's nice to see we're ahead of the rest of the county, but that's mainly the restaurants and hotels doing it.
Right.
In that category, it is restaurants and hotels. It's not broken out separately, so you can't tell what was the hotel. I mean, hotel sales tax will be on food and beverage or rentals, which I think that being up is really attributed to group business being up again, but,
Right. Yeah, the groups are starting to come back a little bit more than, it's a steady climb. It's not, yes, we're way up here, but it's been a steady incline. So we're still hopeful that we're getting more bookings and everything. And so that the hotels will come back even stronger.
well, that would also be, do you, and I don't know the answer to that.
Well, the hotels and restaurants would include the restaurants and hotels.
Yeah, in the
But for
hotels.
us, that's not that many restaurants in the scheme of things that are in the hotel.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I would say probably a large percentage of this is restaurants versus the hotel side.
On the back, on lower right corner, it looks like, if I'm reading this correctly, that it is broken out
Casual dining.
by actually,
Dining versus
Yeah.
casual versus.
yeah,
Where-
subsets of restaurants,
Okay.
and then hotels and motels are in there as their own entry.
Where does the conference center come in? What category is the conference center in? Because if you have, again, you've got groups in the conference center that have rentals,
Okay.
Um, I
business and industry. I don't know.
I believe so. I believe so. And I'm actually,
Because that-
let me
that-
check on that because I'm not sure how our conference center
Sure, it's fine then.
is actually included in here. So let me.
Yeah,
look
because
it up.
in,
Hmm.
well, and that's the question then too. If there's a banquet in the conference center, is the sales tax and Marriott's doing it? That's coming out of the sales tax that has been in Marriott or from the conference center?
Mar-
And, but the specific,
Whoever's collecting it is where
Right.
it's gonna
Yeah.
report. So it'd be the Marriott.
so then at any point in time, because with their AV, because there's tax on
Yeah.
the rentals and audio visual, that would again be the individual companies rather than the
Well, no,
conference.
but usually isn't a group paying, if Marriott's handling the group, who booked the group, I guess who booked the group is gonna be the one billing the group.
Well,
And the one
Marri-
billing the group is gonna be the one liable for the sales tax.
Right, but Marriott has these are contracts with the city. That Marriott has a catering contract for the conference center, whatever is it, Encore, that the AV, they're the companies that they have that are,
I guess the question is who bills the group for the AV service?
yeah, that's true, I don't know.
That's who's gonna be paying the sales tax,
True, okay,
regardless of where yeah. 'Cause
we'll ask Janine. When she gets back today.
so it's, that's the,
Okay,
regardless of where.
so that might still. Question? Nick? But that will help as we saw with when the conference center A was under construction and sales tax dropped because of the group business or lack thereof there, and COVID, obviously, but as it's coming back up again, it is yet another reason that it is important and imperative that we support the group business, because as we know from the Convention Bureau, the spend is 3 times leisure, and it helps us. Yeah, perfect.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Great. Have any other discussion? Can I get a motion to accept this report?
So moved.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Any public comment?
No public comment.
Thank you. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Rick Aldinger,
Yes.
Justin Chang,
Yes.
Carol Tribajian.
Yes.
Nick Sina,
Yes.
Rick Hoyer.
Yes.
Then I think barring anything else, I'd move to adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Look forward to seeing you next quarter.